You may have seen it in promotional material. Vernestra has this lightsaber whip, and I feel like they just put it out there. Like it's just in this scene so they could use it for promotional material later. There was literally no reason for her to have whipped it out. So they're on this planet examining the bodies, and all of a sudden Vernestra senses one of those moth creatures that were on the planet, and she whips out her lightsaber literally and dispatches it. And that's it. That's all we see of it. And it's so forced into this episode that you can't help but feel they were just using it for the marketing shot. Ooh, look, we got the first lightsaber whip in live action. Well, it looks stupid. I know they exist. I know they exist in Legends. I've seen them much cooler looking, and I think Jedi did use them, but I think it was more of a dark side using weapon. It's not elegant. It's not civilized, so it's really not something you'd picture a Jedi using. Also, I don't think they really understand how the technology behind it is supposed to work. It doesn't work the same way as a regular lightsaber. And the way they show it makes absolutely no sense with the mechanics of the lightsaber. So that was the only action, by the way, in this episode. The reason why I say it was completely forced in there, it did not make sense, was because they already very well established that the creatures only attack or are only drawn to light. So this was the only time where we see one of these creatures on the offensive, just attacking. So she didn't have her lightsaber out to begin with, and it just started attacking, or it just went after her and she killed it. Like, it was made extremely very clear, like it was in both episode 4 and 5, that they are only drawn to light. And in episode 5, it was how Osha was able to get the upper hand, I guess, on Smilo Ren, was attaching a light source to it so the bugs could come and carry him away. So it made absolutely no sense for what they've established themselves in the story. And literally it just only felt like, yeah, it's a promo shot, and that's the only reason why they used it. I don't even know if they're going to use it again. Are we going to see it in an actual combat setting? Yeah, it was so underwhelming, and they hyped that up so hard. The stupid lightsaber whip. It was so much. Oh, it's the first time we're seeing it in live action. It was just everywhere on social media when they were pumping it out. And it was so underwhelming. It was over in 2 seconds, and that was it. And it just looks stupid. I'm sorry, it does. Maybe how you decided to use it. If they used it in a combat setting, that would have been better. And honestly, again, it didn't make sense with the story. So it didn't make sense with the story that you established, and it was over in 2 seconds. That's like Disney, Star Wars defined. They like to hype up certain things. They hyped up the Jedi Trinity and her fight scene with May. That was a huge part of their promotion. And she's dead in 2 minutes. It's over in 2 minutes. In the first episode. First 2 minutes of the first episode, she's done. Lady Arendelle, that's a very valid point. They just want to show the whip. And it didn't even look good. I'm sorry. It looks silly the way it had it. I think it would have been much more interesting if they had Smilo Ren use a saber like that. But also, it'd have to be like an actual whip. It would have to look like with these light sources attached to it. It doesn't work the same way as a traditional lightsaber. I think that would have been much better if they would used it for Smilo Ren. It's much more akin, I think, to a weapon a dark side user would use. And I know there's precedent for light side using it, but it just doesn't seem to fit. I think the live action, first introduction of live action should have been by a dark side user. Would have been cooler, kind of in a similar way to Darth Maul and his double-bladed lightsaber. That was cool. You gotta think about what's cool. At the end of the day, when it comes to Star Wars, this is the rule of cool should be your guiding star. Not the Gozerian. We need lightsaber throwing stars. I know, just everything. Every weapon is a lightsaber. You need a lightsaber version. Yeah, there's no cool anymore. I mean, did they think that was cool? They really saw that and said, oh, hey, yeah, lightsaber whip. Did they think we would lose our minds because we saw a lightsaber whip in live action? You have to make it make sense. Mickey Chow Mein, yeah, whip has connotations of the will to dominate. Yes, exactly. When you hear Obi-Wan talking about the lightsaber, he's talking about it as an elegant, civilized weapon, not clunky or random like a blaster. I mean, a whip would definitely be extremely hard to handle and could cause collateral damage. So yeah, it's just not something you'd picture a Jedi using. And I'm trying to think of another combat situation where you would use that. It had to be a very specific situation for you to use a whip in a combat setting. And this feels like it's the only situation where they can make that work. It's just her dispatching of a bug. Chiron, Kamir is actually cool. We needed him episode 1. Yes, again, it's just potential wasted. And I feel like if they had a better grasp of what's cool about the nature of the dark side, That was like the best thing they had going for them, was people were intrigued by this dark side user, because we are fascinated by the villains of this universe, but they just don't feel like really put in the work to establish his background, his motivation, and especially in his relationship with the Force. Manny Jacinto is great though. He's great at acting. He's doing his job. Unfortunately, the writers aren't doing theirs. It's a lot of wasted potential. Mickey Chow Mein, I don't think it fits a Jedi. The idea of it is a punishment device. Retro nerd girl. I don't believe the Jedi would allow that kind of weapon at all. Yeah, and I'm trying to think of where it was, because apparently it is used by both light and dark side users, but I don't know. I feel like it was predominantly used by the dark side. Yes, Regis read, Lumaya was the one using a light whip in the EU. And again, I'm trying to think about what the mechanics were of it. It didn't have the same mechanics as a regular lightsaber. It works differently. Hammer Biotech. Yeah, thematically, a light whip is much more a Sith weapon than Jedi. Sith innovate because they don't respect traditions, and it's a weapon very dangerous to everyone around the user. Yes, it is much more akin to how the Sith operate. It was been cool for a dark side user like Lumaya. The lightsaber whip was first used by a Sith against Luke by his former lover. It was the reason why he made a lightsaber Shoto in the first place. That Harv guy, Lumaya's light whip was a physical whip that was Kyber/plasma charged. Yes, thank you. Like, I knew it was different. It had to operate differently. It is completely different mechanics. And again, if you're a nerd, you would know this. The people in charge are not nerds. They don't care about the details like that. So they introduced Cortosis, and they thought everyone would be over the moon about it because it's a Legends source. Like, the Legends people, the Legends fans are not going to be over the moon by this, because we're tired of you stealing ideas from people who are more talented than you and just twisting it and presenting it in inferior fashion without thinking, just very haphazardly. So they used Cortosis. First time it's been seen in live action with Smiler Ren's helmet. And it's a fascinating device. It can be really cool in a combat situation. Yeah, it looked kind of cool in a couple scenes with episode 5, where you finally have some action with it. But they also just threw in things that made no sense. So Smiler Ren is talking to Soul, and he says, kind of person hides their face from their people, or I forget. He's basically saying to remove his helmet so I can see you. And Smiler Ren says, and let you read my thoughts? No, no, no. That was another part with the dialogue. Why is he saying it that way? No, no, no. It just doesn't sound menacing. Anyway, so they just threw that in there. So apparently Cortosis can block the Force, which I don't think that was ever a part of the lore surrounding this rare material. So they just threw that in there. And in episode 6, they kind of expounded on it more in a very clunky fashion. So he's repairing his helmet, and it seems kind of strange too, because he's fixing it with an electrical device, which the material is supposed to short out. Very strange, but I guess I could suspend disbelief. I don't know, whatever. But then he also says that it works as a sensory deprivation helmet to allow you to connect to the Force more easily. But it doesn't make sense because it also blocks the Force. When you think about it, it just falls apart. And this is how the episode ended, was with Osha putting on his helmet, and it was the most goofy looking thing. So silly. And then you see it from her perspective in the helmet, and you can only see like a sliver of light. And are we supposed to think that's epic because we're seeing in her helmet and we only see like a sliver of light? Okay, she can't see anything out of it. Ooh. Hammer Biotech, my understanding is the effects of Cortosis are purely because of exotic physical properties. Short-circuiting the lightsaber, not blocking any Force element. Exactly. That's why I was saying before that they don't care about the details. See, nerds would care about those details and would make sure that the lore was right. And that's what Dave Filoni's job is, by the way. I have no idea what he's doing. Like, this is what your job should specifically be, is to make sure the lore fits. If you're going to touch on subjects like Cortosis, if you're going to touch on subjects like the nature of the Force, the light and the dark, then you need to make sure that lore fits within the universe, within what George established. And that is literally should be only what Dave Filoni does, is to make sure that everything is consistent with the well-established lore. But no, I don't know what he does. I don't know what he's paid to do, because he's certainly not doing it.